We're gonna move on to question 4, but before we move on, think small. You know, Grant, I wish we had like a gift to give you. Remember how it's like you'd be a guest on a show and you'd get a gift?
Oh, I'm not going to get one?
Oh, you know what I'll do? I'll send you out some Portland coffee. Let's do that. All right, so Think
Nah.
Small, the book by Dominic Imsang. Go to Amazon.com. And
Don't hold your breath, Grant. I've been waiting on hazelnuts for 3 years.
Sorry about that.
so my
I keep
son,
hearing about this hazelnut Alfredo that, because Dougie is Italian, he makes homemade everything. So I want my 5,000 calorie a plate Alfredo sauce made out of Oregon nuts.
Fine. I'm going to the nut farm today. Also known as picking up my kids. Let's see.
Today's closing question in today's AWSC chat on Perspective with @Grant Owens of @Razorfish is perspective, a big life-changing theme. But what little things can you do daily to achieve and enhance it? And the hashtag, as always, is AWSC chat.
And I think that's the most important word there is little. Grant, do you feel as though that people try to make big paradigm shifts as opposed to incremental change in terms of the way that they perceive things and gain perspective?
Yeah, yes, and I think our industry sort of incentivizes that, but in reality, most stuff, like in life, happens in incremental change, as well it should, right? Because as a brand, you want to be tapped into culture, you want to be tapped into others' perspectives, and those things take time and careful consideration. So absolutely, sometimes you'll happen across something that feels big and powerful and immediate, but I find those very rare.
The first response comes from @Jonce, Jonce. Go out! Perspective is gained through experiences and interaction. You touched earlier about getting out of the office. You'll literally go for a run. You talk about getting out of your bubble and doing different things and kind of expanding your horizons. What do you think that the line is? Is it a fine one? Do you think it even exists even? Between, we're talking about things you can do every day. How do you develop a routine, if you will, to enhance gaining perspective?
Yeah, great question. Some of the things that I do is I try not to get all my news from blogs. Like, we live in a world where it's just easy to go in the morning and take 15 minutes and catch up on blogs, but get news from other places. I still watch the 11 o'clock news just to see how sensational journalism will twist the story.
So you're watching Fox?
Very rarely, but it's a good way to get.
Sorry.
It's a good way to get perspective.
Yeah.
The other little trick I've learned.
You bang on Fox News all the time, but do you guys find that when you watch things that you clearly don't agree with, that it really enhances your position, makes you want to dig even more to prove your point?
Yeah, I lived that for 6 years. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Newberry, you interrupted Grant. He was in the middle of a sentence. It's not very polite.
I prefaced it before we got on the air that I was going to interrupt him at least 17 times. I think that was twice.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got.
Please continue. Please continue.
No, to answer the question, I don't think I'm the only one who maybe wouldn't normally watch Fox News, but during the night of the election, was absolutely glued to it for the fact that it offered me the other view, which makes for interesting conversation, makes for, in some cases, entertainment. But it is exactly what you need to be doing to sort of toggle back and forth between debating perspectives.
Perspective and comfort zones. That's kind of a big thing. There sometimes feels as though that there's a misperception that you're saying, oh, I'm getting all this new perspective. I'm getting this new perspective. How can you identify and acknowledge that you might be getting perspective, but it might still be a little bit within your wheelhouse, and it might not actually be giving you true perspective? How do you get out of that?
Ask one of your colleagues, or ask someone that you trust to tell you the truth. Get into a conversation. Go have beers with somebody else. Don't. I talk about the little things you can do. If you go for a run, or you go to the theater, or you just step away. But go have beers with somebody else and start a provocative conversation, and then have it out, and then you can gain a little bit more confidence in whether or not you're onto something. Or do it in the very large empirical way, which is to throw it out there, test it with a group of 1,000 people that are in a private community or what have you. There's a great website that I've used a couple of times called ask500people.com, and that's literally what you do. You post a question, and 500 people will answer your survey, and it's absolutely free. Why not do that?
I like that. And then I'm going to throw a challenge out, and I just noticed that I moved the camera, and you can see my son's weird-looking parrot up there. Move that up a little bit more. Here's my challenge. And we're going to talk about themes for 2013 instead of resolutions. Talk about themes. Here's my challenge, though, is that I would love for people who are interacting with this, and we'll do a post on it. But introduce yourself to one person that you would not normally introduce yourself to. Maybe it's on LinkedIn. I mean, that's a great place to do it. Find somebody that's interesting to you and just genuinely introduce yourself and see if you can have like a digital pen pal. I love, we challenge people during advertising week to go introduce yourself to somebody. Go walk up to a CEO and say, "Hi, my name is." That feels, I don't know, that because again, I noticed that we sort of travel in these little tribes and these little cliques, and it can be very destructive, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that idea. It's a really cool exercise.
So how do we do that, New Bear? I'm putting that on you now.
How do we do what? I think you find the first person that you see that you would not normally talk to for whatever reason. Go up. I think that the best way, the best themed way for me would be a response that we just got from, was it Ad Shrink? Yes. Our own Jeff Berry says, try new foods, visit new places, take the long way versus shortcuts, and talk to people in the elevator. That's probably the funniest way to do, because most people hate being in the elevator. Most people, it's like weird. You don't talk to anybody. You just look down at the floor directly ahead of you. Just start talking to people in the elevator and see how randomly freaked out you can get people when you talk about random weird stuff.
That guy must be a planner. He's talking to people in the elevator.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's see if we got some other...
Planning never stops.
Never.
No. Spend 5 minutes with an intern and ask them what they think about client, category, project, whatever.
That's Whit Thompson, right? It has to be Whit Thompson.
Well, of course it's Whit Thompson. But we're going to give Eddie all the credit. Grant, let's talk about youth. Let's talk about young people and your experience. How do you glean perspective from them? What do you glean from them?
Well, the myth is that it's all available on Facebook. Just go into Facebook. I think it's a challenge because it's it's such a shifting, mercurial group of individuals, and that's one of the things I see in data a lot recently is that people will talk about Gen Y and Gen Z, and they'll show data points to say, well, they're really into being social, they're really into music, and it strikes me consistently when I see that data, that has nothing to do with generations. That's life stage.
No. Right.
That data is not really indicative of anything different from what our parents or my generation went through at the exact same age of 14. We wanted to be social. Music was our life, or at least we thought it was at the time.
Right.
We weren't loyal to brands more than 3 or 4 minutes until it wasn't cool, and then you had to move on. Right. All those things I think are happening each generation based on life stage. So that is a tough group to tap into. But you got to go observe those environments. You got to, a few years ago, I used to be a skier, and not a good one or very frequently, but I switched to snowboarding just because I liked sort of jumping into a different culture, kind of going to the dark side. And it was amazing how quickly in snowboarding I tapped into a much younger culture and found myself reading magazines I would never have thought of, just a few months earlier. So try a few things. I mean, you don't want to look like the guy that's in a leather jacket not invited to the party, but if you can sneak your way in, be a good observer.
I know that guy.
What have you learned? You keep the theme is try new things, and the number is 10, right? 10 other things for year 1. Perspective that you've gained over these 14 years. Talk about how do you know when enough is enough? You know, if you don't necessarily have that 100% conviction that the very first thing and my gut instinct is the thing, I'm going to go collect these things. I'm going to introduce myself to random weird people in the elevator. I'm going to read magazines I would never. We're going to do all these things that we've just touched on. When do you know when the cutoff is? When do you know that you have enough to go on?
Well, you find it in the room with your creative team. You find it as a group of individuals. You know when you've got it, when that idea just starts to parlay itself, and everyone gets excited, and everyone wants to interrupt each other because there's so much to be had there. There's so much power in that idea, that perspective. That's when you know you've got it. And so ultimately the answer is you don't get it until you're in the room and you're already sort of executing on it. That's one of the things that creative folks that are following some of the things we're discussing today will realize that the creative brief is not something in isolation. It's actually a collaborative thing that then starts to take on more power as it gets talked about among a larger group of people. Mm-hmm. And that's so important to me. I'm not a big fan of the one-page Word document that gets handed off to the creative team. I'm a huge fan of the conversation. And you've got a great perspective when that conversation sort of parlays itself very rapidly.
Parlay! I like it.
Sorry about that.
No, I like it. Parlay is a great word.
Better than baguette for sure.
It's betting. It's gambling vernacular. That and the vig, which is known as the vigorous, which is a never mind. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up here. I want to comment on one post though. I'm sorry, I keep moving my camera around. Kate I from Bournemouth. I love this. Be eccentric now. Don't wait until old age to wear purple.
Instant retweet.
Love it.
We will end the that part of it on that note. But at the end of every chat, we like to give our guests a chance to shamelessly promote. This is a surprise, Grant. I didn't want to. I'm going to stall for you here a little bit. But I didn't want to put it in the email communication because I wanted there to be a little bit of surprise. That and the fact that the Trailblazers won last night. Big surprise. So you have the floor for a little while to shamelessly promote anything that you would like.
Wow.
It can be professional. It can be personal. If you have an alt country band that you're in, go ahead and promote that. Whatever you
Funny
like.
You should ask. Let me tell you about my alt country band. I don't have an alt country band, but I have a view on advertising and sort of the cultural change that we're going through that I think would be one that I just promote for the greater good of the industry, and that is to be present in everything that you do. We have so much technology at our disposal now with our phones at our fingertips, and they can actually take us away from a conversation that we're having and not put us in the moment. And we have a lot of head down syndrome. And I would love in my teams and the partners that we work with to find people that are in the moment, sort of present at that moment in the game with us. That's something that's really important to me, and I think it's only going to become more challenging in the creative process to stay present with your teams. And I would promote the idea of being present. That's my little call to action, if I could, for the industry.
You don't have a mixtape?
No.
Demo?
Yeah. No other shameless plugs. I have some shameful plugs, but I won't give them.
Fair enough.
That is perspective.
I love it. Well, Grant Owens of Razorfish, this was fantastic. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank our good friend Britta and also Isabel for their help in helping us get this set up. It's not the last that we'll hear from Razorfish for sure, but I want to thank you so much for your perspective. This was tremendous fun. And we didn't even talk about hockey live. So to all of you out there, especially Eddie, thank you, and welcome back, by the way.
Hey, Grant, my birthday is this weekend. What would be the #1 thing that you think I need to focus on from a planning perspective?
Cake eating.
Right, right, right. And those for you,
Pretty standard answer there, but I think you ought to.
yeah.
See, you trusted your gut. I had to get it out of you.
Yeah, cake eating, huh? Britta will get this one. Edina, Minnesota. For everybody, I'm Zanger in Portland, Oregon, New Bear Lesniewski in Lexington, Kentucky. For the entire Advertising Week Social Club family, thank you so much for joining us. And Grant, thanks again, and we'll see everybody next week.